I think the bickering has to stop. Like, I find that a lot of, one says they're going to do this, one says, anyway, it's not very productive.
I think the system's a little bit broken, and that's the problem. I feel like my voice isn't being heard.
Welcome back to our live streaming of CityVote 2014, The Debate. We have one more candidate we'd like to introduce you to. Al Gore, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
This is your chance. What is your message to the voters of Toronto?
Well, bottom line, the City of Toronto, we have to attract new business to the city. Yes, that's essential. Yeah, and it has to appear to be a place of business where, it is honest business too as well. The other thing we need to do is, how would you say, raise the minimum wage to $14 an hour. Yes, that will help tremendously and put money into the economy. Yes, it will, definitely. Yeah, and that's the province's responsibility, how would you say, to legislate this and put this in place. Yeah, it'll bring money to the economy, into the city. It'll attract business too as well here. We have to do that because we'll let the voters decide on this, won't we? Let the voters decide. It doesn't come down to City Council or the people in this room. The voters will decide.
Thank you very much, Al Gore. Now, there are a number of topics that are not being discussed in the mainstream debate tonight that we would like to discuss here. And one of them is the Gardiner Expressway. Rocco, what do you think should be done?
I have a very strong feeling about the Gardiner Expressway. And if I'm like the mayor, I'm gonna make the Gardiner Expressway an ETR highway. And the reason is we spent $311 million fixing it for the last 11 years, and now we're spending another $50 million. It's broken. We need a new one. We need a new Gardiner Expressway, and I'm going to tender it. It won't be a 407 fiasco. We're going to get the right people to build it. I'm going to make it a toll highway, 100%.
Okay, Rocco, thank you very much. Wally, what would your solution be for the Gardiner Expressway? Should it be taken down east of Jarvis?
It's going to have to be, and what's going to have to be done is the system has to be taken down in two different sections, and there's two ways to set up the traffic so that the traffic can be relieved. Yes, it'll infringe on the city in some aspects, but you have to relieve the traffic during those high volume periods, and those are key issues. That way it can finally be overcome. Otherwise we're stuck in a grid.
But how are we going to build it? How are you going to fund it? Where are you going to get the money? Where are you going to get $5 billion? It costs $5 million to build it. We don't have the money.
Listen.
You can only raise money two ways. Either you increase tax or you sell property. So we cannot sell property. We can't increase tax. We have to sell the highway. We need a toll-free highway, just like every other major city has a toll highway. We need it.
We'll have more issues, more debate coming up in a few minutes.
Legalize marijuana.
I'm so sorry, Al.
It's okay. That's your
Back to the questioning. John Tory has a question for Olivia Chow. 2 minutes for this segment. John.
Well, Mr. Chair, I want to ask about garbage pickup. I'm very clear on where I am on this. We have privatized, contracted out the garbage pickup service on the west end of the city, and it is saving millions of dollars every year. And not only that, it is providing people with better service. And that's measured by the city's own employees who look at the number of complaints and the number of responses they get from people. If we were to do the same thing on the east part of the city, we would save further, more millions of dollars, and we would give people in the east part of the city the benefit of the same improved service that exists today in the west end of the city. Are you in favor or opposed to going to the east end of the city and getting those benefits, getting those savings for taxpayers, and getting that improved service for taxpayers? Yes or no?
Well, I'm going to leave the contract as it is. I believe in competition. I believe that having the public versus the private, have them compete with each other right on Yonge Street. And let's see who can deliver better service in a longer time, okay? And who can deal with the finance properly.
How long would it take? I mean, at the end of the day, we know we're saving $11 million every year on the west side of the city and better service. So how long is it? 5 years, 10 years? That's $100 million.
Well, no, I think it's important for the competition to take place. I don't want to sell hydro, for example, because Ms. Stintz
what does that have to do with garbage pickup?
Well, because you can't just let private sector run their business, okay? I don't really need to take any lessons from you because we're not on the golf course right now. I don't need to take any lessons from you. But hang on a second, Mr.
Can't you
Can
just fess up to the fact you're the NDP candidate for mayor, and of course you wouldn't possibly think of benefiting the taxpayers to the
Mr.
tune
Tory.
of 11 million or more per year. It's
Mr.
actually more
Tory,
in the
allow
east
me to
every year and better service
Mr.
because
Tory.
you're hidebound to your union friends, and that's the difference between you and me.
You know,
I would
this
get those
kind-
savings
there's no
and
place
get
for
that
this
better
kind of
service. You
partisan
wouldn't.
attack. I am.
Okay, this segment is over. Back to our special panel now. The next question comes from the Toronto Star's Royson James. Royson.
Yes, and the question is for Olivia Chow. Olivia, you're on the left of the political spectrum and your opponents are all on the right. So which of your 4 opponents would do the most harm to Toronto as mayor?
Thank you for that question, Royson. You know, municipal politics, you and I both know that, is that we work together. We work together as a team. Yes, I am a New Democrat. My late husband led the party. But on my team, I have Conservative as a campaign manager. I have Liberals. I've always worked with everyone working together to get things done. You've seen it happen. And my worry is that Mr. Ford needs to go. So I'm most worried because we've had it with the scandals and the lack of truth. So my answer to you is Mr. Rob Ford. But having said that, you do know that I work together with everyone. And I have something to prove. I have the proven track record. Whether under Mel Lastman's as the Budget Committee and Children and Youth Advocate, we've delivered good service for children. And even before I got into Metro Council, City Council, I made 911 service speaking 140 languages so that people across Toronto, our wonderful city, can be served. And that's my track record. So my worry most is Mr. Ford because he has become an international embarrassment. That's my real concern because he's really not a good role model for my grandchildren or your kids.
We will take a short break. When we come back, Rob Ford and Karen Stintz each get to question a challenger. Rob, we don't need the question, but to whom will you ask it?
David Signacki.
David Soknacki. Okay. Karen, who will it be for you? John Ford. John Tory. Sorry. Yikes.
That was a kidney shot.
I think I created a new candidate here. The candidates Q&A. When we come back, you're watching CityVote 2014, The Debate.
Welcome back to our live streaming of CityVote 2014, The Debate. There are a number of issues, upon speaking to some of these candidates here tonight, that there are a number of issues that keep coming up time and time again. And one of them is quality of life. And I've got 3 candidates here who want to talk about that and ways that we can improve the quality of life in our city. Morgan Baskin, let's start with you.
I want to talk about the quality of life for youth in this city and for youth really across the country. We don't talk about the issues that matter to us, and we don't talk about our quality of life. We need to talk about education, we need to talk about housing, we need to talk about jobs, and none of those issues are really being addressed on a large scale by any of the candidates.
Okay, thank you very much. DeWitt Lee.
Yes, I say that youth also is quite important, and the City Youth Council that has recently emerged is providing a youth a voice. And I just encourage all councillors to take full advantage of these youth advocates on the ground. But in Psalms 82, it says, give fair judgment to the desolate, to the fatherless, and to the poor. And I believe the city needs to make it a permanent mandate to represent Toronto the Good, which we originally were coined as by serving those who are least. And I think when those lives are impacted, then our city truly is a better city.
More funding for permanent affordable housing?
More commitment to making sure that the least are taken care of. Because when their lives are changed, then the city grows. And that's how I want to measure a better city, by better lives of the citizens.
Thank you very much, DeWitt Lee. Norm Gardner, quality of life, how can we improve?
Well, there's 2 candidates who do not have any respect for the taxpayers' dollars, and one of them is Olivia Chow, and the other one is Rob Ford. When I took over social services, I came in $32 million under budget by cutting out frivolous spending that Chow and some of her colleagues were spending on when they were on the committee. And actually, she was on my committee as well.
Rob Ford's whole platform is
Rob Ford has cut services terribly. There's 500 people a day that use our ambulance service. There was almost 50,000 hours of full-time overtime for paramedics because the ambulance service now response is slower than it used to be. It takes about 8 minutes now to get an ambulance. And if you have a heart attack or a stroke, seconds count to save lives, so people are either being more seriously impaired or dying because of Rob Ford.
Thank you, Norm Gardner. We'll be back.
We lost firefighters. We lost.
You're watching CityVote 2014, The Debate. Your results now and who you think should lead Toronto, and the results aren't even close. Let's take a look here. We've got Rob Ford with 40% of the vote in our poll. Olivia Chow comes in at 32%. John Tory, 24%. Karen Stinson, David Shocknacki, again, polling at the bottom amongst our viewers here, each with about 2%. So we have had thousands and thousands of people vote in this poll, but we have one more to go. So this is the final one that you can vote on in just a couple minutes. It is basically who has your vote for mayor. So after hearing from all the candidates in the debate today, we need you to vote on this. Text your vote to 37607. Tweet your vote to @poll. Click on a vote, citynews.ca/live. Again, how to text. You get your phone, you text to either vote Olivia, vote Rob, vote David, vote Karen, vote John to that short code 37607. Standard text rates apply. Gord.
Right, Francis, thank you. We're back with the candidate interaction segment. Rob Ford has a question for David Shocknacki.
David, everybody knows you're David Miller's budget chief.
In the first term, yes.
You increase spending more than any budget chief ever has. How can people trust you with their hard-earned tax dollars when you started David Miller's mess and Shelley Carroll continued on with that disaster?
Well, let's start first of all, Rob, and say, yes, I'm proud of the budgets, the three budgets that I delivered with David Miller's budget chair. But I'll tell you, that's the difference between the top line and the bottom line. Our bottom line was 3%, but that top line was money for transit from the provincial government. That money was from federal government for infrastructure. That money was for the provincial government for things like public health nurses. Public health nurses that you voted against. So yes,
because we didn't have sustainable funding for it.
Yes, if you want to get rid of public health nurses, if you want to get rid of the money for transit, if you want to get rid of the money from infrastructure, yes, that's what you can do. You can cut that. David, but what we did is that we accepted that money and said, yes, it's absolutely critical. I'll tell you where, no, let me finish the question. Let me tell you where the growth is. The growth has been in TTC. The growth has been in the police service. The growth has not been in all of the management, all of the administration. The only areas of growth were three: TTC, police, and public health.
Okay, David, why didn't you contract out garbage when you had a chance when you were budget chief? Why did you wait for Rob Ford to come along and contract out garbage west of Yonge, and now I'm going to do it east of Yonge? Well, you had an opportunity to contract it out and you didn't.
Oh, actually, good question, Rob, because I can show you the bruises. Because I was there and I moved to contract out cleaning services and police services.
No, I didn't say cleaning. Contracting out garbage like I have done, and we're saving $80 million a year, $11 million every year for the next 7 years. I have done that, and we're going to do it in the next term. Why didn't you do that?
And Rob, what we did is what I did.
Garbage strikes.
Well, that was Doug Holliday. That was Doug Holliday's triumph.
What does Doug Holliday have to do with anything?
He was the negotiator, not you, Rob.
All right, time for our final one-on-one. Karen Stintz wants to grill John Tory. Again, 2 minutes. Karen.
Thank you, Gord. John, it's about transit and congestion and how we're going to pay to build the transit network that we both want to see. I've been clear in what the revenue tools that I would support for building transit, and I want to hear from you. I know you have a transit plan that you say is coming, but I also know that as chair of Civic Action, you advocated for about $34 billion worth of transit taxes that included a commercial parking levy, a vehicle registration fee, a utility bill levy, an employer payroll tax, and there's more. And but what I'm not entirely clear on is, mayoral candidate, would you support taxes to build transit? Yes or no?
Well, let's start with the facts. First of all, I've never advocated for a single revenue tool of any of the ones you mentioned as head of Civic Action. I simply took the position as the head of that organization that we had to spell out how we were going to pay for transit.
Okay.
Secondly, I will say that we're 3 weeks into a campaign that's going to last 9 months. Sooner than later, I will come forward with a comprehensive financial plan for the city that spells out exactly how we're going to pay for transit and everything else in the city. But let me just talk about your so-called solution that you talked about a moment ago.
Sure.
Because that's the problem sometimes.
Although
when you're
I was actually asking you about your position, though, John, because you're running for mayor, and you did
asked me
advocate.
a question, and I'm trying to answer it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem when you come forward with these things, perhaps in haste. You started off saying you were going to sell 10% of Toronto Hydro. This week, we saw that you moved to selling 50% of Toronto Hydro.
John,
and let me just tell the viewers that Toronto Hydro, in case they didn't know, Toronto Hydro gives the taxpayers and the citizens of this city $40 million plus in dividends every year.
So then you're agreeing with me that we should do that? Because this is my question of you.
I'm saying that you came out in a very hasty manner and said you were going to sell that off, which I would not do.
Okay, but I didn't ask you about that.
I would not sell Toronto Hydro.
I asked you if you would support taxes to build transit, yes or no? And I'm not sure the viewers have a clear answer on that one.
Well,
so
the bottom line is that money that comes in from taxpayers is used to pay for transit no matter which taxpayers it comes from, federal, provincial, or municipal. I will have a complete plan as to how that transit will be paid for. But I think it's really important that we not fire sell assets and make hasty promises to do that when it's going to cost us huge amounts of money.
Expert panel, City News political specialist Cynthia Mulligan with the final question of the night. Cynthia.
Mr. Ford, everyone has skirted around quite delicately the issue of the scandal. I'm going to give you a chance to address it and speak to it firsthand. You have admitted to smoking crack cocaine. There is a police investigation underway into you as we speak. You have said in the past you're not perfect, but people do expect a lot from the chief magistrate. How can voters trust good judgment in you going forward for the next 4 years, and can you address this scandal head on?
Cynthia, people have heard the story. It's rewind, rewind, rewind. People know my track record. They know they can go to sleep at night knowing that their tax dollars are being watched. You can carry on about someone's personal life, and I'm the first one to say I'm not perfect. Maybe these people are, and everyone else says, I have a proven track record of success watching taxpayers' money. That's what I was elected to do, Cynthia. I have saved $1 billion. You followed me around for 14 years. They said I couldn't get it done. I have done it. I will do it with the new council. You know there's going to be new councillors. Why don't you come April 17th at the Toronto Congress Centre, 650 Dixon Road, and see our kickoff and see who supports me and who doesn't. That will answer your question. Let them answer that question for you. So I've answered the question. I'm not going to get personal, but I'm going to talk about my record of achievements. And my record of achievements, I have a proven track record, and it speaks for itself loud and clear. Thank you.
From you personally and your judgment.
From all 5 candidates are just ahead here on CityVote 2014. The debate will be right back.